Kia ora, guys. Welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max. I'm the host of the channel, and today I've got a very special guest. Me and this guest, we tried to organize it in the off season. Thought I'd wait a little bit so you guys can get a few more insights into Super Rugby and the Six Nations. I'd like my guest to introduce himself now.
Kia ora, Max. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Ben O'Keefe, Super Rugby International Rugby referee. Looking forward to having a chat with you today.
Yeah, gonna be a big Super Rugby season ahead. So lucky you'll have a some pretty intense stuff coming up in your Six Nations game later this year, mate. Got a week or so to go to all that.
Yeah, we all of a sudden it's just started. We've had round one already. If you looked at all the games across the weekend, they were fantastic. They were fast. They were exciting. Some big scores, a lot of tries. So
Yeah.
a lot of tries. It means as referees we've got to be running after them quite a bit, which was pretty exciting. So yeah, mate, it's got me straight in there. We're off to the Super Round this weekend, and I fly up to do Six Nations. So it's great because normally, this time of the year is the start of our season as Southern Hemisphere referees. Sometimes when we go out to the Six Nations, we don't get to have those sort of Super Rugby or those warm up games. Moving into England, France for me, I'll have two Super Rugby games under my belt, so I'll feel pretty prepared and pretty excited to get amongst that.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff, mate. So to start off this bit of a Q&A that we've got over here for you guys in the audience. So I'll be kind of doing an interview style thing, more relaxed, and we'll get to know a thing or two about Ben and his refereeing career. So while in the modern day you're an international referee, mate, we need to learn how you got involved with rugby in the first place. So did your involvement with the game begin as a ref or as a player?
Well, I'd say it started as a very amateur player. But like a lot of Kiwis in New Zealand, I grew up watching the All Blacks, grew up loving rugby. My dad was a rugby player, rugby referee back in the day as well. I did sort of play the oval ball for maybe the first 5, 6 years of my life. But all my mates played rugby. I grew up in Dunedin. I played for a club called Harlequins. And that was really my passion. So, just being able to play on the weekend with them. I was a quite a tall, gangly second five centre as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, and then sort of went up the ranks and kept playing right up until under 18s and varsity as well. So I just loved rugby, and when I was at varsity, when I went down to Dunedin, I tried for a club, and I don't know, I guess I just lost a little bit of passion for that playing, probably because I wasn't as good as I thought. That dream of being an All Black or that dream of playing in Super Rugby and NPC, I think I sort of realised that it wasn't going to happen, which was fine. Fell a little bit out of love with it. But probably the playing, but loved the game. And that's when my dad said, you should give refereeing a crack because that's what he did back in Marlborough. So I grew up watching a lot of his rugby, but not because he was a referee, just because he was involved in the game. And I was a kid in the crowd, with my hot chips and stuff. So I enjoyed doing that, and I thought, well, yeah, I may as well give it a crack. It's going to keep me involved, keep me out of the books for the weekend, just so that I can get out and run around with the guys. So that was it. That's what I started. I started in Dunedin, and I just kept going from then, and obviously started with club rugby and just kept moving up the ranks like players do.
No, awesome stuff, mate. So you were like 18 or something when you started riffing?
Yeah, what was I was actually 19, 20, because it was really my second year at university. I had sort of 1 year off where I was just studying the whole time. Didn't really get out of my room, and then second year I did my first game. I think it was like a Colts game at Alhambra Union, so North Ground. And the game was across in front of me. I was actually flatting across the road and seeing the players warm up, and I received the email, which I didn't read until about 10 minutes before kickoff, that I was refereeing the game. So grabbed my pair of boots. I had an old whistle and ran across and refereed this game. And mate, until this day, I don't know how I refereed that game. I'm glad it wasn't videoed because I really was just thrown into it. And but to be fair, probably the best way to learn. Just get put in the deep end and see how you go.
You learn on the job, don't you, mate? It's just one of those things, eh?
Yeah. Oh, you have to, I think, well, obviously, you'll be happy to hear that since then I've done a little bit more prep before games, but that was really a cool way to start. And Dunedin was a great place to, I guess, to start refereeing club rugby, because I'd say that it's not a big city like, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, where there's a lot of referees. Being a student town as well, you get people that come for 3 or 4 years for their degrees and then move on. So for me, it actually opened up a lot of opportunities, which you probably wouldn't get potentially in other big cities with more senior referees. So, I was able to referee their senior club rugby, I think, in my first or second year, and that really helped me grow as a referee, because you're refereeing good rugby. You're being challenged constantly with pictures. And I think when you're doing that, you're always growing as a ref, and it definitely made me a big part of where I am today.
Oh, for sure. Good on you, mate. So for you guys in the audience, Ben's also a doctor and stuff. So as a professional doctor, you'd have been very busy juggling refereeing with your medical studies. Did the balance of studying and refereeing assist with, I guess, clearing the head during a busy time, mate?
Yeah, like it has assisted with many things. I think the first one you're saying, Max, about did it help me clear my head? Definitely. It still does now. I work sort of 1 or 2 days a week in the eye clinic here in Wellington, where I live. And you go and you referee an intense match of rugby on the Friday or the Saturday, and you do some good things, you make some big errors, and sometimes you make some really bad ones that go into the media, or they're just talking about the refereeing decisions. And that's really hard to get away from. And so on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, before you have another game again, you're having to deal with that. Now, the best thing that I have, and I think it's really important that all referees have some sort of at least a hobby or another job that they're doing in the background as well. On the Mondays when I was working full time, and then sometimes now, I had to get straight back into working a pretty intense and high pressure clinic. And so being able to do that meant that no matter what happened the weekend, I had to obviously do my review really quickly because I had the whole week at work, and I just had to change my mindset and move on to the next job, which was working in the hospital. So that helped me deal with, I guess, those weekends that there were big decisions, or there were decisions that didn't go well. It made me more, I guess, efficient, that I had to review and do things a lot quicker. But also, working in an environment where I was dealing with a lot of people, a lot of patients, it helped with and a lot of pressure. It helped with all the same decisions, the pressure that I had to deal with on the field, but also the management skills, the communication with players as well. So I think the balance of having another job and actually being able to referee really, really helps. And it did get to a point where having to juggle both was too much. And I was fortunate that New Zealand Rugby offered me a full-time contract around the time. There was a year where I was sort of doing NPC and just started refereeing Super Rugby. And it meant that I was starting to, travel overseas. I was starting to, be away on the Friday night, referee Saturday, be back Sunday, then straight back to work on the Monday. And, I was starting to miss flights, and I was starting to, I guess the clinics were running overtime because you couldn't leave early. So all those things meant that I was, I found it, a bit of a struggle. It was pretty tough. So fortunately, I was able to sign that contract and then, flip it around a bit where, I'm totally flexible now. I help out. I work, 1 to 2 days a week when I'm in New Zealand. But if I am away, then, I'm away and can fully focus on the rugby. So, I've got a really good balance at the moment, which is working well.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, mate. Loving the insight of that work-life balance over there, eh? So we'll get into how your career's progressed from completing your studies and stuff, heading to Wellington, all that. So the first professional match you officiated was in 2017. For the audience, we'll get you to learn about it, how it went, things like that.
Are you talking about
Yeah, your first NPC match. Yeah, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, because obviously, it's quite cool to think back, 2017, and there's been a lot of rugby since then. But I do remember that game because, it was my first look into the professional game, first class game. I'd done some Heartland rugby before that.
Yeah.
But I was pretty nervous, and I remember, I had a lot of support from the other New Zealand referees because, up until that point, I'd run touch. I've been the assistant referee. So you get a little bit of a taste of the environment, but to be out in the middle and to be able to be blowing the whistle I was quite nervous. But I'd built up my skills, and I was pretty confident that I wasn't being rushed into the system. I'd done my time. I obviously refereed a lot of club rugby, a lot of Heartland rugby. I was really diligent around how I previewed and reviewed games. So I did a lot of work leading into it, and it was an awesome game at Eden Park. Like running out in Eden Park was pretty special. But I do remember that game for one reason. My first ever penalty was 7 seconds into the game. And normally you gotta, as a referee, you build into it, and you should always be prepared to blow your whistle on the first play of the game. But often you try and build into the game, get the clear and obvious. But normally it wouldn't be 7 seconds in. So anyway, I blew like the pee out of my whistle 7 seconds in. It was Sam Kane. I penalised him for side entry. And then when I looked at the review and the replay after the game, it was the most perfect through the gate, over the ball that you could as a player. So I was 0 from 1 7 seconds into my first class debut. So I think part of that was just a little bit of nervous excitement, and I was just keen to get into
Yeah.
it. So yeah, no, I love that, and thinking back on that was pretty cool because I had a lot of family up at the game, and went out for a nice meal afterwards and a bit of a celebration.
Gotta love that it was the All Black cap that against Auckland Day, mate. It cracks me up. So by
You better
2015,
find footage of that.
yeah, I might actually try to do that. I'll look up Plenty versus Auckland 2013. I'll see what I can find. Back on track. So what I was going to say before was so by 2015 you'd refereed age grade championships and Super Rugby. You were then able to officiate the NPC final in 2015 between Auckland and Canterbury. We'll just kind of figure out where this ranks, I guess, in terms of milestones in your career, mate.
Look, I mean, it's up there. Any type of any final that you do, I mean, any game that you do, I always sort of get to the next week and go, wow, that was one of the best games I've been involved in. And then you go to the next week, and that next game is as well. But that was one of my first high profile finals. As a referee, I mean, I don't try and aim or try and tick off finals because there's a lot of New Zealand referees that could do a rugby final and do it well. But I do like the pressure, and I do like the challenge of, well, I've worked hard enough, and I work really hard as a referee to be a good referee for the players and for the spectators and for the game. Well, I'm gonna do a good job of this final, and I think that's what I always want to do. So, look, I think it ranks up there. Certainly at the time, it was one of the biggest games that I'd done, and it was a really nice game of rugby again as well. I think I remember I had one yellow card in the game potentially. Against Scott Scrafton, who I know really well now, and his wife's a rugby referee too. So unfortunately, I think that started the yellow card train that me and him ended up being on. But he's in Italy now, so he gets to avoid me. But no, he's a really good no, so yeah, it was definitely up there, and I'm glad that when you do finals, though finals are slightly different to obviously any other game. There's extra pressure on the team, so they play slightly differently. There's extra pressure on you. There's more people watching. There's obviously an outcome where one team's going to win the championship. So there's all these things that as a referee you have to be aware of, and you have to open your mind to understand. And I think the important thing is as well that as a referee you can't change how you've been refereeing all season. The teams do preparation on you as a referee, and if they are surprised about how you referee, or if you change how you referee in the final, then that can actually ruin the final as well. So finals are really good. I've been lucky enough to do a few now, and I think every one of them I've learned something extra around what I'll take into my next game. So that's why I enjoy doing finals, mainly for the growth that you get out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Loving to hear the mindset behind all this and stuff. How it's always centered around growth and stuff. I think now that we discussed 2015, we kind of start to see that mindset translate into your progression as a referee, because 2015 was also a pretty big deal. You were named as the assistant ref for a Tonga versus Fiji clash. And then in 2016, you got given the whistle for Samoa versus Georgia. As referees like progress in rugby and stuff, does getting named touchy pretty much does that pretty much, what's the word, I guess, is it pretty much like the best way you can develop your game through learning off the best, or do you kind of see it as a method to learn off others' mistakes?
Yeah, it's actually 100% correct. I mean, it's the process that they use for us through all the levels. So club rugby all the way up to international. You'll always be the assistant referee before you referee. So you'll go, I'll be the assistant referee before I referee the NPC. I'll then be assistant referee in Super Rugby before I did. And then in 2015, I sort of timed it so that, I was the assistant referee and then started refereeing my own test matches. So what it allows you to do is like you said, you are learning off the best. So, I got to be the assistant referee for guys like Nigel Owens, Craig Joubert, Glenn Jackson, Steve Walsh. And, you pick up on all these different things that they do before the game, during the game, after the game, how they communicate, your running lines, all those things. So as the assistant referee, as well as that, you're actually in the environment. So
Yeah.
if I had to go and referee a test match without having any experience of a test match at all, I think, you walk into a 50 to 80,000 person stadium with music, fireworks, the anthems, all that kind of thing. If you're having to referee that, then that's a lot of extra I guess, experience that's on your mind that you're not used to yet. So they try and, I guess, numb you or get you used to that as the assistant referee. So you do that for a few years so that, when you do walk out in the middle yourself, all that external, I guess, pressure or external noise you're used to. So you can just go and referee the game. So I really, really like that. And that's what they did for me. I got to be the assistant referee. And then I got to, be the referee for that Samoa Georgia game, which was a 21-all draw, which again is interesting. As referees, you never like players, like coaches, they always say they never like draws either. But it was just a wet game. It was a tough game. Both teams were very strong at the scrum, very strong at the breakdown. And to be fair, it was probably a good reflection of the better team on the day. They were pretty evenly contested. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience to be able to get my first test match under my belt.
Yeah, awesome stuff there, mate. We then get to 2017. I had a pretty bad head knock myself, so I guess as you do, you start watching a lot more rugby. And the first game where I really took notice of you as a ref on the test stage, I remember it was England versus Australia, and you did a pretty exceptional job in that fixture with things like pretty hard to pick up on obstruction by Michael Hooper. There was a fair bit of praise for you after the game. When it comes to the media, I guess talking up the referee, things like that, what's the way that you kind of approach the way they're talking people up and stuff?
I think you just got to be able to I think take no notice of it, because if you just try as a referee take notice of all the good things, well, you're often searching for everything else and you'll pick up on the bad things as well. You need to have some really trusted individuals, so coaches, referee coaches, friends, family, who, they're going to give you the insight and they're going to help where to get better and how to get better, versus relying on the public and their opinion. Because, even though you said that I was praised after that game, I guarantee you that was probably only in the Northern Hemisphere. I don't think I got a lot of praise in the Southern Hemisphere. And, quite rightly, I remember that game like it was probably one of the most bizarrest games I think I'll ever be involved in, because normally test matches are intense. The big moments in the game, so the high impact decisions are around tries, around yellow cards, red cards. And generally in a game of rugby, as a referee, if you can nail those one or two key moments, then you really referee the game really well, despite making errors at the breakdown and making errors or non-decisions throughout the rest of the game. But so understanding that there might be two high impact decisions in a game, I think this had about 7, and they all went against Australia. So whilst on review, and I prepared really well, I had a really good team with me. We explained the decisions really clearly, and on review, we did get all the decisions correct. The fact that 7 decisions all went against Australia was just bizarre. And so, if you're looking at a balance of how people watching the game would see that game, it would be very balanced the wrong way in terms of against one team. And I think we did. We had a Michael Hooper offside, so we scrapped out an Australia try. We had a Curtly Beale deliberate knock on, so that was a yellow.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. He blew up at me quite rightly, but that was correct. We disallowed a Stephen Moore try because, again, he got in front, so we're being quite technical. But also then it went in England's favour because there was a kick downfield and the ball was rolling towards the touchline and it was about to roll out, but then it somehow rolled back in. Australia had all stopped. England picked up the ball. I think it was Johnny May, someone, and they ran and scored. So it was just one of those games that, we couldn't believe what had happened and what we were getting involved in. But, to our credit, we just had to stick to our guns. Despite all the pressure and the build-up that we felt during the game, we just had to referee what was in front of us. And, when we put on the big screen, we stayed pretty technical. And, we just ended as it was. So, again, I learned a lot. Yes, I was praised for that in the North, but you got to understand that we do a full review of the game, so really it's about what my coaches, what my reviewers actually think, and they were pretty happy. But it was definitely good learning just around, I guess, the experience of everything that happened.
So refs, I'll just go off track for a little bit since we can talk more about this and stuff. So what you do as a referee when you're doing a post-match review and stuff is you do a similar thing to the analysts hired by the coaches. You rewatch the whole match and you slow things down to maybe 15%. That's what I slow games down to at the end. And you, I guess, try to find what you've done correctly, what you haven't done correctly, how you can change it, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I watch a game, so I did it for the Crusaders Chiefs game last weekend.
Yeah.
So I've got a coding window, and I'll code the whole game. So it probably takes me about 4 or 5 hours to code the whole game, because although I'm not slowing it down, what I'm doing is I'm constantly going forward, rewinding, pausing, rewinding again as the player's hand on the ground.
Okay.
Is he on the ball? Is there a lift? When I penalise them for not rolling, did they affect the 9? So I'm actually going through and trying to work out all my whistle decisions. Were they clear and obvious? Was I correct? And a clear and obvious is important because I could be technically correct a lot of times in a game, below 50 penalties, but it's actually, you got to be able to understand that, we're trying to get what is clear and obvious and what's actually impacting the game. So if a player does go off his feet, if he's sealed, then we should give a penalty. If he's gone off his feet and has it affected the game at all, then we should just leave it and then just warn that player. And if it becomes a trend, then get on top of it. So I'll code my tackle, I'll code the line out to maul, scrums, my positioning, space, the communication between my ARs, the communication between the captains, any yellow or red cards, and I'll go through that. And from that, after the game, what I'll do is I'll have some key things that my key learnings, things I did well, things I can improve on. And things that I might have some question marks around, which I'll then share with the other professional referees, and they'll give me an opinion. So I should be able to week by week get better through I guess the video analysis that we're able to do. We then send those clips to the coaches, so the team coaches, they can actually understand when I was correct, so that they might need to change behaviour, or when I maybe got a decision wrong, which definitely happens. And giving them that clarity means that, well, they can go and talk to their lock or their flanker around the penalty I gave them and said, well, actually you were fine, you don't need to change your technique, the referee was wrong, he said he's wrong. And it just allows them to be able to move on to the next game a lot quicker.
I guess on the other side of the coin with I guess going away from the example of that 2017 match I brought up, referees have tended, I guess, to cop a bit more abuse in the era of social media. So I remember actually at one stage you were on record as explaining that the hardest part about reffing internationals is the public scrutiny. So what advice for the up-and-coming referees have you got regarding like some of the trolls and stuff?
Look, it is the most hardest part. I think as the game gets faster, as the game gets more professional, and then you go from Super Rugby to Test matches.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to say that the games are easier, but the players are very well drilled. They're obviously professional players, so things actually as a referee stand out a lot more when they get them wrong. So even though the game's quicker, I actually like refereeing Test matches and I like refereeing Super Rugby because you get into the flow of the game. It's really, really fast, and you can make good decisions. So what is harder is actually, it's the trolls, it's the social media, it's the people that have access to you, even though you can be as private as you want, but they tell you about the decisions that they think you got wrong. And sometimes people are right, and that's okay, but a lot of time they're just coming from a place of sitting on their couch, ill-informed around the laws of the game and what we're trying to achieve. And then they can get pretty personal and have some personal attacks on you and your family, and that does make it really hard, because we're only human, and when we hear and we see these types of things, even when we've had a good game, it does affect you a little bit. So I guess to people who are starting to referee or coming through as referees, our generation now, and the next generation, we're attached to our phones, we're attached to social media. I think that's different to the referees previously. If they didn't want to read about the game, they just would choose not to pick the newspaper up. Where now it's so easy to access that, and it's so easy for people to access us. I think it's just you got to be able to train yourself to get to a point where you just don't read anything about the game. So I made it a goal or something last year that I wouldn't read any social media posts about the game that I did. So I might read a Stuff article or New Zealand Herald article about the game, but I would never tap into the comment section.
Okay.
On Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, I'll never tap into the comment section, because that's where the trolls, they start talking about me, and they talk about the ref, and that stuff's really hard. So I achieved it last year, and it's pretty easy now. And I mean, a little bit is about sort of ignorance is bliss, but certainly when I've and it means as well that I'm not reading the good things either. Now, not a lot of times there are good things, as because people that are sort of got their heads screwed on, they don't really say good things about the referees. It's really just the people that want to have a go. So I do avoid those positives, the positives when you do referee. But it definitely outweighs all the negative stuff. So I think, just as an individual, for people coming through, you've just got to, try and get to a point when you can, understanding that in this day and age, it is quite difficult the way that we sort of rely on social media.
Yeah, good on you. Perfectly said pretty much about the ignorance is bliss part, eh? The modern day, it's also seen a few Instagram pages, Facebook pages. There's also this dude, for example, called TAS Analytics on YouTube. They dedicate pretty much what seems to be all their time supposedly calling out bad refereeing and stuff. What do the actual professional refereeing class, such as people like yourself, I guess, make out of this behavior?
Oh, look, it's kind of like what I was saying before. I mean, I don't read any of that. I don't
Yeah,
look at any of it. And I guess the times that it has come across my desk, I find it quite funny sometimes because, look, every now and then, I think they might get it right. Like I miss a forward
yeah,
pass, or TMO misses a neck roll that might lead to a try. So we do work hard post game to be able to work on, okay, where was the communication breakdown between the team of four, the system referees and TMOs that missed that decision. But we would have already picked that up in our review, so I certainly don't wait around for other people to be able to tell me that. But the times that I have seen, I guess the reason none of the professional referees look at it anymore is that they're just wrong. Like there's a lot of innovations in the game. There's a lot of new laws in the game. There's a lot of different ways that we actually referee a game that we've developed over time, and I think a lot of people just don't understand that. They actually you can freeze frame a lot of things in a game of rugby and make it look either worse than it is, or decide the penalties should have been given when it shouldn't have been. So I think these people, if that's what makes them they get kicks out of it, then that's fine. But we just don't really look at it because often I think they're in cricket. I mean, what they should be doing is actually getting a referee on those types of YouTube channels, and I think those social media channels, because then I think they'd have some credibility. And my point, I would have thought that they're trying to do things like that to be able to grow the game, and because
yeah,
everyone's
mate.
a fan of rugby. Well, I think fans of rugby actually just love to know, okay, what was the right decision and what was the referee thinking. I think get a referee to be able to explain it to you, and I think people understand I guess the decision a bit more, even if we were right or wrong. That's the main thing as refs. We understand we don't get everything right, but we would like the chance to be able to show and describe our decision making and the times we do make the right decision.
Yes, we're up for a part two. Have you ever have to give a red card out then, eh?
Yeah, well, look, I'm definitely I like to I'll make a view. I've worked hard to be able to make clear and appropriate decisions, and if that means I play on, if that means I give a penalty, a yellow card, or a red card, we'll always review that decision after the game. I hope that for red cards that I've given incorrectly previously, I've worked my butt off to be able to make sure that what was the reason, what was the ingredient that I missed where it shouldn't have been a red card or it should have been a yellow card. And I think of the Marika Koroibete red card a few years ago that I gave. I worked my butt off because I realised that it was incorrect. So I needed to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. And so experience is key as a referee, because as you go along, you build on your game as much as you can. And I guess the errors that you make and the experiences that you've had that didn't go so well, you put those learnings back into your game so that you get better and better. And hopefully, as my career progresses, those errors become smaller. And my confidence goes up more, because I know that, well, I've seen a lot of things that have happened. I've had a lot of experience. I can actually deal with anything that happens on the field. But certainly, like I'm not going to say I'm never going to make an error again, but because I will. But I'm always happy to explain and put my hand up when I did, and then hopefully educate the public around what the right decision should have been, and what I've done to be able to improve it for next time.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Loving the mindset once again. We'll get back to those positives on the progress of your career, of course, because 2018 you won NZ Ref of the Year. When you started the process of, I guess, starting out as a 19-year-old, just heading down to walk across like 50 meters to the pitch, do you expect like an accolade this was going to come your way?
No, I never did. I never was going for something like that. It's like I said before, I never try and try and tick off finals. It wasn't until probably 2016 around then that I thought, I might even be able to go to a World Cup one day. So, all of those sort of future goals, I didn't start actually realizing until I was making my progress through the refereeing ranks. So, to get an award like that, and I've won it a few times since. It really was more just telling me that I'm on track, and actually the hard work I'm doing to be better in the game, to be one of the best referees that I can be, is actually working. And that's all I like, because in New Zealand, we've got a lot of hardworking referees at obviously community level, but all the way up to professional level, men and women. And any one given year, I would support any one of those referees to actually win an award like that as well. And there'd be many referees that are deserving of it. So to be able to do that, what it actually gives me is that makes me understand that I've got a big responsibility as a New Zealand referee. You win an award like that, it's actually my job to try and lead New Zealand referees, lead the growth, lead our development, lead the game a little bit from a referee's point of view as well. So to try and help give insight into, they're trying to innovate the game, they're trying to make the game faster. And I actually want to give my opinion as a referee, because I do have a lot of experience to be able to help that. So I think I like that responsibility, especially in New Zealand. I think, if we have top referees in New Zealand, that's what I want to try and help. If we get those top referees in New Zealand, it means that we're going to have top games, top players, and a game that everyone's going to love watching.
Yeah, massive respect, mate. 2019, 2021, a few more milestones coming your way. You got selected for the World Cup. You were the youngest ref at that World Cup as well. Then in 2021, even though the pandemic was, I guess, pretty rough on the referees in New Zealand, a few of you guys had to double up with multiple games a week. Like you'd be, I guess, with the whistle in one game on a Friday, down there to be assistant the next day and got Christchurch from Auckland or something. But you ended up heading off to referee the British and Irish Lions tours, second test in 2021. I guess talk us through selections for big events like that. And I guess what advice do you have for the younger referees who are maybe starting to crack it at the NPC level on their way to it so far? Something like that.
Yeah, we like progressing into World Rugby. I was selected to the World Cup, and that is the pinnacle for sure. And they picked 12 referees, so the 12 best referees in the world to be able to go and referee at a tournament like this. So to be able to be recognised and be able to get into that group of referees, it was a real privilege. It was a huge honour. And I think what you want to be able to do as young referees coming through, you want to be able to work so hard now that when you are selected for those tournaments, so British and Irish Lions, World Cups, Test matches, you want to be at a point where you can just go into those games fully sure of how you referee, your style, understanding the game, so that you can be confident you're going to be able to deliver. And if you're trying to actually catch up, a year out from the World Cup and thinking, okay, I need to really enhance my game, I need to change my refereeing style, then it's going to be really difficult to be consistent, because to referee, I think, at a World Cup, it's a 4 or 5 year cycle from, when they first maybe notice you as a referee, your first test match. So my first test match, I think you said, was 2015, it was the Samoa game. You want to be able to you got to be consistent from then all the way to 2019, because if you just think that in 2018, if you just referee 4 or 5 games, well, it's not going to be enough. You can actually, you got to do it for a longer period of time. So, and using, even though it is on TV and it's your, it's a first class game, you got to be using NPC Super Rugby to, it's not developing, but you got to be just working hard so that every game that you referee, you got to review them so that you get better. I remember putting up little camcorders on, the top of hills in my club games, just so I could get some footage. I even had a GoPro that I sort of cut a hole in my referee jersey and, put it on there just so I could get some footage. So I could review my club games after. But, I think all that work now meant that, that I was selected for 2019. I could referee that tournament really well. And then, that leads to, I guess, everything else that I'm doing now. So my advice is, just got to work hard. Just got to do your time and do it early. Do it, before you actually reach that test match level. Because if you're learning at that time, obviously we're all learning, but, you want to be able to hit the ground running and really, sort of take off, which, we're seeing a lot of referees do that now. I think, because they are doing the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, love all the advice there on the Kiwi ingenuity with the GoPro in the chest. Loving the camcorders up the top of the hills. You definitely better I guess encourage as many young referees to do that as possible because that's actually some really like smart stuff, mate. Recent times, NZ Ref of the Year again in 2021. And obviously, you said earlier on the podcast, you've got a Six Nations game coming up where you're going to ref England versus France. How's this going to be as a prep for the 2023 Rugby World Cup as we kind of start pushing our eyes over to the other direction as that's fast approaching?
I hope it's going to be excellent preparation because hopefully I do a good job. It means I get selected. They're selecting the World Cup referees in May, so they're basically, we've got about 4 or 5 selectors. They will be watching the 15 referees that have done all 15 games. So we had one referee for every game for Six Nations. And they're going to pick 12 of those referees to go to the World Cup. So there will be people that miss out. It is all on, I guess, what I was mentioning before, performances leading up to this, but also it's really important like your last game. So my job is to, understand that there is a risk when referees, when we're trying to be selective for something that we do change how we're refereeing. So for me, it's just important. I think this would be good advice to anyone is that I'm going to, be who I am. I'm going to referee exactly the same way that I'd referee any other test match, even though this is for a selection, because it's important. It's the only way that I know how I can be consistent. It's the only way I know how I can referee the game really well. So my goal was to go out there, be Ben O'Keeffe on the field, referee it really well, referee it fairly for both teams. I know we'll have a really great game, and then all I can say is, okay, I've done my job, and hopefully it's good enough to be selected for the 2023 World Cup in France, which I think is just going to be fantastic. A World Cup in a rugby-loving nation like France, a country like that. I think with the way that all the teams are sort of leading into the World Cup now, with not just 5 or 6 teams sort of vying for those playoff spots, but you can go all the way down to probably the 9th or 10th team. Actually, all the teams, everyone's competitive. I think it's just going to be awesome. So I really, really hope I can get selected and then do a good job at this World Cup because it's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll probably be a World Cup for the ages, the best that we've ever had, to be honest. When you mention stuff like the fact that even Wales, who I'm doing a bit of analysis on right now, people were saying they were boring. I think they could potentially get a decent payoff if they find the right balance. Like, it's craziness. Just going to hit off track again, mate. So they're essentially using the Six Nations as a trial run for every referee they're considering for World Cup selection.
I wouldn't say it's a trial run. I say it's an audition. So all the referees, we've got a great squad of 15 referees who are in contention, and basically, without them telling us, we know that our selection date's going to be in May. We know that, okay, this is apart from our domestic competitions as well. So Super Rugby for me, the URC, Top 14, the Premiership. Apart from obviously refereeing that well up until May as well. This is the last one at an international level that we got the opportunity to do a good job. And so I think thinking back on the 3 rounds we've had so far, the referees have all been fantastic. So I'm sure there's a little piece of in the back of their mind knowing that they need to do well for World Cup selection. But I think it also just shows that we've got a quality group of referees. So for our bosses to be able to pick 12 out of the 15, I think we're going to make it tough for them, which is good because it means that all the referees we're trying to push each other, and obviously that's going to help the games and the games that people are watching.
Yeah, real good stuff there, mate. We'll go back to the training and stuff you do as well. I think I might have brought this up earlier in the podcast. As some of you guys in the audience may know, refs actually get given similar fitness standards to the players. What fitness drills are you happy to share with some up and coming officials, Ben?
Yeah, so our fitness tests that we have to sort of reach every maybe 3 times a year. We've got to do a Bronco. So Bronco is a really common spit or running test, which I guess tests a bit of aerobic and anaerobic power and endurance. It's a 20 meter, 40 meter, and 60 meter run where you go out and back 20, out and back 40, out and back 65 times. And you got to do it in the quickest time that you can. So our standard as referees is we've got to get under 5 minutes. We get ranked based on how quick we can do. The quickest referee I think in World Rugby is 4 minutes 16. That's Christoph Ridley. I think I've sort of got in there at 4:29, so that's when I must be behind a bit of a breeze and running downhill as well. So I can definitely get up there, which is good. But a lot of the referees are really fit. So that's the Bronco time that they need to do. We've got to do a 10-meter speed time. We've got to do a counter movement jump, so testing leg strength, and then obviously they do the dreaded skin fold test, which coming off the summer for us Kiwis, barbecue and a few cold ones isn't always good for us. But apart from that, so that's our testing. But then during the week, we'll be 2 to 3 times in the gym. Some referees more than others. Will be in probably 2 field sessions, and our field sessions are trying to replicate what we're doing in a game. So a lot of it's I guess interval-based training. So in it, out and backs using the 20 meters, maybe the 60 meters as well, and doing that to certain times. So we'll be doing a 45-minute session, and we'll be pretty fatigued afterwards. We might use an iPad or something to actually watch clips as well, so we're trying to make decisions under fatigue. That's probably the only other best way that I found to be able to replicate that is speed golf. So running around playing speed golf, you only got 1 or 2 clubs, but having to make decisions under fatigue about which club you're going to use, where you're going to hit your shot, how hard you're going to hit it. So I try and explore all these types of things to improve my game, because as a referee, okay, we don't need to make tackles, we don't do down and ups, but what we've got to do is we've got to be able to run, we've got to be able to be close to play and close enough that we can make good decisions, and that we've got to have a clear head to be able to do that in the 78th minute, for example, where those final minute decisions are pretty important. So that's all the type of training that we've got to do. We've got to be just as fit as the players, and I guess trying to just be up to speed with the game as much as we can, so we can make those correct decisions.
Definitely want to see you race Bodie Barrett for a Bronco at some stage. Pretty interesting variety of jobs you got there as well. Do you not reckon you'd be able to?
No, there'd be 1 or 2, maybe James Dolman in New Zealand. He's pretty quick on his Bronco, but oh mate, those athletes, I think the Barrett brothers, half the All Blacks, they're pretty fit, and it's obviously while they can do their things, when they score tries, I just need to be within 20 meters of them. So I'm not going to try and ever compete with them. I'm getting a bit too old now as well.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Before we wrap things up, Ben, I'll just see if you've got any more pieces of advice for some of you up and coming refs in the audience who will probably be making up a fair share of the audience on this one.
My advice to young referees, or to referees in general, I think, is refereeing is quite, it's quite, I guess you could say, lonely. It's solo. You're quite independent. So you have to do a lot of work by yourself, and you have to develop things by yourself, which sometimes means that you can get into a silo where you might go off track a bit, or there's all these experiences that you have that another referee hasn't had before. So, and likewise, so other referees throughout the whole of New Zealand and the world, and club rugby all the way up to test match level, will have different experiences that you've never had either. So for me, the one key bit of advice is, try and talk to as many other referees as you can about their positioning, about their tackle philosophies, around what they do when they have a hard decision in the last 2 minutes of the game, or if they have to deliver a red or a yellow card. If you talk to a lot of referees about that and share your opinions, then I think you'll develop, and you're not leaving that development just for in game. So for me, creating that team of other referees around you, I think it's really going to help you. It's going to help younger referees be better in the weekend on Saturday. And for me, when you're making really good decisions, when you understand the game really well, you start enjoying the game a lot. So that's the big part for me. I love rugby. I love refereeing. And I love sort of getting better, and helping players showcase their skills by creating that environment for them. And that's my goal. And I've been able to do that by actually getting advice from a lot of the other professional referees, not just in New Zealand, but also around the world as well. So there's heaps of refereing IP out there that I think just try and tap into.
Awesome, mate. Good stuff. Thank you for coming to watch the podcast, everybody. A lot of stuff to absorb from there. Really hoping you can take away a few pieces of advice. And most importantly, thanks for coming on and joining me for a yarn, Ben. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Max. Absolute pleasure. Love what you do for rugby. I think it's there's a whole big group of us, referees, players, coaches, and everything that you guys are doing as well to help enjoy and grow the game. So yeah, love it. And yeah, always happy to help out as much as I can.
Sweet as. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Have a good one to everyone watching, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.